Hello all, welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. This is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the daily news analysis. So for today's discussion, we've picked up a number of articles from The Hindu and the Indian Express which are both important and relevant for the UPSC CSE examination. Now let us have a look at the topics one by one. The first article for the day has been picked up from page number 8 of The Hindu. India needs the anchor of a national security strategy. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about why India is in need of a national security strategy, that is the NSS, and how this NSS will actually provide a comprehensive regulatory framework in order to meet the challenges of national security as well as aid in the long-term planning. The second article has been picked up from page number 11 of the Indian Express, Putting Manufacturing on Track. So this particular article discusses about the constant or the persistent stagnation of India's manufacturing sector despite the policy initiatives like the Make in India as well as the Production Linked Incentive Scheme, and it also discusses about India's failure in certain dimensions like number 1, boosting the manufacturing output, number 2, increased dependence on the imports especially from the countries like China, and number 3 is decrease in the industrial investments. The third article has been picked up from page number 14 of the Indian Express, the post of the Deputy Speaker. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about who is the Deputy Speaker, what is the post that he actually holds, what are his powers and functions, as well as the process of elections, and finally the constitutional provisions related to the same. The fourth article has been picked up from page number 12 of The Hindu, Urban Affairs Ministry to revamp the affordable housing scheme. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the Urban Housing Ministry having decided to revamp the affordable housing scheme, that is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So here we'll be discussing about this scheme in detail, the significance, the components, the characteristic features, as well as the urban and rural versions of the scheme. The last article for the day has been picked up from page number 14 of The Hindu. Defense Ministry signs 350th contract under iDEX for miniature satellites. So in this particular article, we'll be looking at the signing of 350th contract of the Defense Ministry under iDEX for the design as well as development of the miniature satellites. And here we will be discussing about this initiative of iDEX, which actually stands for Innovator for Defense Excellence. And towards the end of the discussion, we'll be solving few prelims as well as mains practice questions. And now let us get into the discussion. The first article for the day, India needs the anchor of a national security strategy. So this is also dubbed as NSS, okay? So in this article, we'll be discussing about why India actually needs a national security strategy and how this NSS will actually able to bring in a comprehensive regulatory framework in order to address the threats or the challenges of the national security as well as aid in the long-term planning. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about what is this national security strategy, and we can actually map this to mains GS paper 3 internal security, okay? So moving forward, there has been a question asked in the mains examination in 2021 on analyzing the multidimensional challenges posed by external state and non-state actors on the internal security of India. So here internal security per se is actually mentioned directly in the syllabus specifically for your mains examination. So now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about, okay? So the article discusses the urgent need for India in order to adopt or to formulate a formal national security strategy. First of all, before understanding what are the benefits of this national security strategy, let us understand what is national security strategy, okay? So it is a framework that actually outlines a country's security goals and the methods in order to achieve these, security goals in order to protect the internal security of the country. A set of framework or the guidelines that is actually given as a part of your internal policy. Next one, it should address both the traditional threats which impact the state as well as the non-traditional threats which affect the individual and the humanity as a whole, while adhering to India's constitution as well as democratic principles. Okay, so it actually has to face or adhere and it has to provide, solutions against the traditional threats to the country. At the same time, it has to be inclined towards the constitutional as well as the democratic principles that India upholds. So here, NSS typically includes the threat assessments, the resource allocation in case of any kind of uncertainties in terms of threats, and plans for diplomatic, military, intelligence and defense actions. Now moving forward, let us understand what is the need for India to have a formal NSS. Okay. So here, in order to have a clear strategic direction. So here let us actually understand, while most powerful states like you have US, China and even Pakistan had actually released their NSS, okay. So India actually on the other hand does not possess one or does not release one, and this actually leads to capability investment decisions. So in this case what happens, investment decisions are being made through internal bargaining itself among the military services. Whereas if you have a formal NSS in place, it would provide a clear overarching strategic direction, helping to prioritize investments as well as initiatives more effectively than how it is done internally. The second one, why is there a need? First, it is to avoid the stagnation. Okay, what does that mean? It helps to plan. Sometimes what happens is the plans and priorities get stuck in the old pattern itself and they are not subject to any kind of reevaluation or any kind of quality check. Okay. So here what are they saying is plans and priorities get stuck in old patterns and are not re-evaluated properly. So in that case, the national security strategy would institutionalize regular reviews as well as updates, ensuring that the strategies evolve with the changing circumstances as well as the geopolitical order, okay, as well as emerging threats that actually face India. The next need is that comprehensive strategic vision is needed. So most of the times if you see, grand as well as important strategic visions remain concentrated among a top few, government officials or bureaucrats, and they are actually hidden behind the closed doors, or it is overshadowed by the other political whims and fancies. So this is also one of the reasons why NSS should be in place, because it would actually democratize the strategic vision, making it very, very transparent and inclusive, at the same time ensuring broad-based support and understanding of what is actually happening. The next one, it also addresses the global strategic risk, like global strategic risk from the climate change to the pandemics like the COVID-19 we have required decades of coordinated policy effort. And a formal NSS in that place would facilitate long-term planning as well as inter-agency coordination in order to address these multifaceted challenges comprehensively. The next one is managing regional challenges and adaptation to emerging threats. There have been a lot of the regional challenges, specifically those like what India faces from that of China, be it the border issue along the LAC, be it the trade, that is in terms of the imports or over dependence on the imports, and then the anti-dumping that we actually face with respect to that of China. And also we have other emerging threats, like you have the Israel-Palestine conflict, then you have the West Asian crisis, then we have the Ukraine-Russia war, all these things. Okay, so in order to manage the regional challenges and adaptation to the emerging threats, like for example, China presents interconnected challenges from a naval build-up to the economic influence in the South Asia, specifically if you see the South China Sea, and it is actually heavily investing on the infrastructure, specifically in Sri Lanka and other closer neighbors of India. Okay, all these things. Next one is distant conflicts like those in the Ukraine and Gaza. They reveal new technologies and tactics that will spread to India's neighborhood. So in that case, if you have a regular process, it will make sense of these turmoil as well as geopolitical shifts or the changes, and it will plan accordingly. Now, having discussed what is the need for India to have an NSS, now let us see what in case if India adopts one, and then what will be the outcome or the benefits. There will be definitely a comprehensive strategic assessment. That is, an NSS would force the government in order to conduct a thorough review of the threats as well as opportunities and take stock of the global security trends. And without an NSS, the long-term threats may be neglected until they become critical, and to a point it actually gets very hard for us to manage. What happens without an NSS? This is what will happen. Next one is coherent long-term planning. An NSS would actually guide the decisions between different military investments, ensuring that the resources are not wasted both in terms of man as well as material on vanity projects. Vanity project is what you actually invest or pour in a lot of financial resources without it having a value or a proper result, and the capability gaps are actually filled proactively. Next one is strategic signaling. And NSS would clarify India's strategic intent to the allies as well as the adversaries, asserting its role as a net security provider in the Indian Ocean, and it stands on the armed coalition against the smaller countries, and it would also clarify policies for the partners, highlighting the converging interest as well as setting limits on cooperation in order to manage the expectations. The next one is there will be government synchronization. This means NSS would help synchronize efforts across various governments as well as departmental arms. It would align the work of the Indian Army, the Air Force as well as the Navy through clear top-down mandate. That is, it would actually align the work of the Indian Army, the Air Force and the Navy through a clear top-down mandate. And also, it would provide common goals for the Ministry of Defense, the External Affairs, the Home Affairs and the other intelligent agencies to come together and to act proactively. Next one, there will be accountability and transparency. That is, it would introduce accountability, ensuring that the bureaucracy actually adheres to the political leadership's intent and that the policies are very, very transparent to the parliament and to the public. So these are all the benefits. Now looking at the countries which actually have come up with NSS. Here you have developed nations, that is the first world, with advanced military and the security structures like the United States, the United Kingdom and Russia have NSS. And also China has a comprehensive national security strategy and Pakistan has also come up with an NSS policy 2022-2026. Now finally, let us actually look into what are all the previous attempts that have been, taken by India in order to formulate the NSS. First one is the Kargil Review Committee set up in 2000. This was actually formed after the Kargil conflict in 1999 and this actually submitted a comprehensive report with recommendations on national security and this actually did not lead to immediate formulation of a formal NSS, however. The next one is report of Naresh Chandra Task Force Security, that is 2012. This was submitted in 2012 and this actually discussed various aspects of national security including defense as well as intelligence reforms. However, it did not result in the immediate release of a formal national security strategy. The next one is National Security Advisory Board, that is NSAB. Here, this actually comprises of experts and advisors on the national security matters who have expertise in this particular area. And this actually formulated draft national security strategy documents on multiple occasions and drafts were presented to successive governments. But however, again a formal NSS did not materialize as a conclusion. The next one and the last one is the General D.S. Huda's document in 2019, which was actually prepared by the Lieutenant General retired D.S. Huda, a former army commander, and this actually marked a significant step towards the development of an NSS for India, and this actually gave a number of recommendations for formulating a formal NSS. Okay, so this is actually a simple topic where you need to understand this from the point of view of internal security. Why, apart from the policies and other initiatives of the government in order to guard the internal security of India, why do we need a proper policy framework to be out, just like how the other governments of the nations across the world actually generally do? The next article that we'll be discussing about is putting manufacturing on track. So in this particular article, we'll be looking into the persistent stagnation of the manufacturing sector of India's economy, despite the policy as well as the initiatives and interventions such as the Make in India as well as the production, link incentives initiatives by the government. And also, the article actually discusses about various challenges that this manufacturing sector actually faces, such as, decreased industry investments. The next one is not, proper policies in order to boost the manufacturing output as well as increase dependency on the import, specifically on countries like China. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about what the manufacturing sector is all about as well as industrial growth, and we can map this particular topic to GS Paper 3 Mains Examination, changes in industrial policy and their effects on industrial growth. So moving forward, there has been a previous year question in the mains examination in 2017 regarding the failure of manufacturing sector in achieving the goal of labor-intensive exports. So here, all the three sectors, that is the primary, secondary and the tertiary, becomes very, very important for your examination, specifically the analytical part for the mains examination. Now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. The article actually discusses the current stagnation and challenges in the India's manufacturing sector while suggesting certain targeted policy recommendations for revitalization. Here the author is actually recommending certain policy reforms in order to revive the economy as well as to make the manufacturing sector also contribute equivalently, such as the services sector. Now moving forward, let us understand what is the manufacturing sector. Okay, so manufacturing sector involves the transformation of raw materials or any kind of components or the raw materials into finished products using tools, using human labor, machinery as well as chemical processing. Okay, like for example, cotton made into clothing, such as that. So it is a segment of the secondary sector. Okay, the economy is entirely divided into primary, secondary as well as tertiary. We'll come to that. And here the manufacturing actually falls under the secondary sector. And key industries within this particular manufacturing sector includes the production of aircraft, the automobiles, chemicals, clothing, computers, consumer electronics, electrical equipment, furniture, heavy machinery, refined petroleum, ships and steel, among others. Now moving forward, let us actually understand the different sectors or the classification of the economy. So if you see, the economy can be classified into three, that is the primary, the secondary and the tertiary sector. So what do you mean by the primary sector? It is the sector which harnesses the natural resources, such as you have land, soil, water, etc. So examples of these include agriculture, mining and quarrying. You may feel that mining actually is a part of industry, but no, mining and quarrying involves harnessing the mineral resources. So mining and quarrying actually belongs to the primary sector. Okay. The next one is the example of the secondary sector. Here it is nothing but this actually turns the raw materials into final consumable products. And here the examples include manufacturing, that is what we are actually discussing right now. Next is chemical engineering. And we also have energy utilities, etc. The next one is the tertiary sector. And this tertiary sector is nothing but this encompasses the services sector, where there is this hotel management and related businesses. Next there is actually IT, and next is theatre, which is nothing but basically entertainment. Now moving ahead, we very clearly know that we're discussing about manufacturing sector, which happens to be the secondary sector. Now moving on, let us see what is the current state of stagnation that this manufacturing sector is undergoing, and because of what reasons. First one, declining GDP share. That is, we are discussing about the status of it. Here, the manufacturing sector's share in India's GDP actually was 16.1% at current prices in the year 2014-15. But if you see towards 2022-23, almost a decade later, this share fell by 3 percentage points, and this stagnation actually reflects that the sector's inability to grow in proportion with that of the overall economy. So one side you can actually see there is the expansion of the economy. Expansion means there is increased productivity in the economy that is actually contributing to the overall GDP. However, the manufacturing sector is actually not increasing, because from the earlier share of 16.1, it has actually fallen down by 3 percentage points to around 13% and so on. Next one is Make in India initiative. This has actually been launched in the background of 2014-15 in order to further, enable the manufacturing sector to perform better and contribute to India's economy. So it was launched in 2014. This initiative actually aimed to increase the manufacturing sector's GDP share to 25% from the 16% and create 100 million jobs by 2022. But despite these ambitious targets, the initiatives actually struggled a lot in order to achieve its objectives, partly due to persistent regulatory challenges. What are the regulatory challenges? There is actually increased red tapeism. And also, we actually have the changing FDI norms. That is, for an foreign investor to actually come and, invest in India, we have a lot of regulatory norms and legal frameworks that they have to follow. Now moving forward, the next one is Ease of Doing Business Index. If you see, India's rank in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index had actually improved dramatically from 142 in the year 2014-15 to 63 only in 2019-20. Despite this ease of, doing business parameter had actually, worked well in favor of India, industrial investment and output growth did not see corresponding gains, indicating that this improvement did not translate into real economic benefits. The next one, regulatory reforms. There were a number of regulatory reforms that was actually done in, the manufacturing sector, but that did not turn in favor of India. So it actually had a backlash. Let's see how it is. Reforms were aimed at reducing the regulatory burden, often benefited employers more than the intended industrial sectors. For example, let's see the mandatory annual certification. So usually what happens, there used to be an annual certification of the industrial boilers that actually takes place by, the state mandated, it is a state mandated regulations. But then in order to ease that, what happened, they had actually were replaced by voluntary third party inspections, and that actually led to zero compliance, example in case of Maharashtra by 2023. So these changes replaced the state mandated regulations with self-certification, which did not effectively improve the industry safety or productivity. Okay, so again, manufacturing sector had a fall or a backlash. The next one is industrial growth and imports. So if you see, the industrial growth rate measured as the gross value added at constant prices was a mere 3% annually from 2014 to 22 compared to the GDP rate of 6 to 7%. Okay. So the GDP was actually growing at 6 to 7%, whereas if you see the industrial growth rate, that is the manufacturing sector's contribution, was only 3%, and this slow growth had not met the domestic demand, leading to increased net imports, particularly from that of countries like China. And if you see, in 2021 to 2022, imports from China has actually ballooned up to over $70 billion, rising further to over $100 billion in 2023-24, making China India's largest trading partner. Now moving forward, let us actually look at the fixed investment rate. So here, before moving on to that, we need to understand what you mean by the fixed capital as well as the next fixed capital formation. So here, the gross fixed capital formation, that is GFCF, is nothing but the total value of a country's newly acquired fixed assets like buildings, machinery, as well as equipment, and the improvements actually made to the existing assets during a specific period. Whereas the net is, you actually subtract the depreciation from this gross value, that becomes your net, because a machinery, when brought as an asset, okay, it actually performs better, but in due course of time, it actually depreciates. So that is what it is. So net fixed capital formation is nothing but it is a value of gross fixed capital formation minus the depreciation on existing fixed assets, representing the net addition to the capital stock. So now let us understand the current stagnation and what is the contribution. So if you see here, the aggregate fixed investment rate or the gross fixed capital formation has hovered around 30% of the GDP. However, its composition has actually shifted towards the services. That is what they are saying. India is actually acquiring, and the number of, buildings, machinery, equipment, all the acquisition and building up of the gross fixed capital is actually more. but that has actually shifted to the services sector, and it is not contributing to the manufacturing sector, especially in the telecom and the infrastructure, while the share of the manufacturing is actually stagnated around 18%. This indicates a lack of growth in the manufacturing investment, that is, people are not investing in manufacturing, which is crucial for the capacity expansion as well as technological advancements, and only then you can result in the job creation in the market. Then moving forward, the impact of COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic also significantly impacted the net fixed capital formation, contributing to high negative growth figures. And here, even excluding the pandemic years, NFCF, that is the next fixed capital formation growth, remained a negative of minus 1.6 up to 2019-20. And this continued negative growth indicates a persistent lack of expansion in the manufacturing capacity, and this further aggravates or exacerbates the supply-demand imbalances. Now moving on, there are few policy recommendations that have been given by the author in order to improve the manufacturing sector as well as, make investments better. That is, there is an urgent need for a well-designed industrial policy focused on the productive investment rather than speculative property development. The next one, the author says that the government must align the trade as well as the industrial policies. That is, whatever industrial policies that are existing now, the trade policies with respect to that of exports and imports also should be in line with this in order to boost the domestic investment, enhance the value addition, and improve the export competitiveness. Next one, small industries require localized context-specific interventions. That is, the interventions and the formulations or standards should not be an umbrella term for all these things, but they actually have to be, small industries they require localized interventions in order to promote the productive employment and drive sustainable growth, and this includes addressing the regulatory bottlenecks as we discuss the FDI norms as well as the red tapeism, and also improving infrastructure and fostering innovation. The next article that we'll be discussing about is post of the Deputy Speaker. So in this particular article, as the 18th Lok Sabha has actually resumed its session, the opposition is actually hopeful that one of the members of the opposition parties will be appointed as the Deputy Speaker. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the post of the Deputy Speaker, as well as is a very important topic from the Parliament, because even if you see in 2024, there have been a number of questions on the, Parliament, that is the passage of the bills or the appointment of the Speaker or the powers of the Speaker. All these are very, very important, specifically for your prelims examination, and it is under polity and governance. We can map this particular topic to the prelims examination, and for the mains under GS paper to Parliament. So moving forward, there has been a question in the year 2017 with respect to that of the Lok Sabha and the State Legislative Assembly. So this entire concept of legislature, whether it is in the center or in the state, becomes very important for your prelims examination. Now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. So the opposition has been anticipating, or it is very, very hopeful in order to get the post of the Deputy Speaker in the Lok Sabha due to its increased strength when compared to that of the previous elections. Okay. So there was no Deputy Speaker during the 17th Lok Sabha, that is from the period of 2019 to 2024. There has been, no Deputy Speaker, and Mr. M. Thambidurai of the AIADMK was the Deputy Speaker of the 16th Lok Sabha, that is from the period of 2014 to 19. And now the opposition held the Deputy Speaker post continuously from the period of 1990 to 2014. So in the backdrop of this, it is expected that one of the members from the opposition will actually hold the post of the Deputy Speaker. So here, let us understand what is this election process of the Deputy Speaker. So here, no specific time frame in the Constitution for the appointment of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker is actually given. And also, use of the term shall and as soon as may be, this actually indicates mandatory and the prompt appointments of the Speaker. But however, a tenure of 5 years or a period of 15 days, that is actually not mentioned in the Constitution. And also, the Speaker is usually elected in the first session of the new House. That is, in the first session or the meeting of the new House, there will be election for the appointment of the Speaker. And also, the Deputy Speaker is usually elected in the second session. And here, Rule 8 of the Lok Sabha rules, or it actually governs the Deputy Speaker election. Now moving forward, let us see what are the constitutional provisions that are associated with that of the Deputy Speaker. So Article 95 Clause 1 actually says that Deputy Speaker performs the Speaker's duties if the post of the Speaker is actually vacant. And as per Article 93 of the Constitution, the House must choose a Speaker and the Deputy Speaker as soon as may be. So here again we actually discussed that no specific time frame is actually mentioned, and as per Article 178 of the Constitution, similar provisions for the state assemblies is actually given. So this is actually towards the center, and 178 declares, talks about the provisions for the appointment of Speaker and Deputy Speaker in the assemblies. Now coming forward, let us understand what are the functions and powers of the Deputy Speaker. So here the Deputy Speaker presides over the proceedings of the House in case the, the post or the seat of the Speaker is actually absent, that is vacant. And this includes all the duties, the responsibilities and the powers of the Speaker. And also the Deputy Speaker assists the Speaker in administrative matters related to the functioning of the House. And in case of a tie during the voting, the Deputy Speaker, when presiding, has the casting vote to break the deadlock, and this is what the Speaker also possesses. And also the Deputy Speaker, in the absence of the Speaker, can certify whether a bill is a money bill or not. This is very, very important because these are very static but still tricky statements that can be asked in your as a one-liner in one of the statements in your prelims examination. Okay, so this is what is the duties, the power functions as well as the constitutional provisions with respect to that of the office of Deputy Speaker. The next article that we'll be discussing about is Urban Affairs Ministry to revamp affordable housing scheme. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about this affordable housing scheme, which is nothing but the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, which is actually used to enable affordable housing to the urban poor. How it will be revamped by the addition of new features based on the learning from the past 9 years from the time of its implementation. So this particular article we'll be discussing about this particular scheme of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban as well as Gramin, because it is important to know both the urban and the rural versions of this particular scheme. And this entire topic can be mapped to GS paper 1 and 2 and the prelims examination, and also under schemes for vulnerable sections of the society for your mains examination. So moving forward, there has been a previous year question in the year 2015 in the prelims examination on Pradhan Mantri JUN Yojana. So these kind of schemes, the policy initiatives of the government, particularly targeting the vulnerable sections of the population, becomes very, very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. Now moving forward, let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay, so the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has recently announced the plans to revamp this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. So let us actually understand what this particular scheme is about, and before moving into that, let us see what are the revamping objectives. Okay, the revamping objectives is to integrate the lessons that has been learned over the past 9 years of operation in order to improve the effectiveness as well as the efficiency and implementation of this particular program. And also it aims at focusing on reducing the delays in delivering the benefits to the scheme beneficiaries. So whoever can actually accrue, or the eligible beneficiaries to the of the scheme, will be focused on over here, and reducing the delays in meeting their needs will actually be focused on. And also new features are introduced in order to ensure enhanced implementation as well as timely delivery of the housing benefits. For that, it emphasizes on leveraging the technological advancements as well as streamlining the administrative processes. Also, the ministry had announced a scheme for special assistance to states for capital investment 2023-2024 as well as 2022-2023, and for improving the speeding up basic urban planning ecosystems in cities by incentivizing the states. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand what the scheme of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is all about. Okay, so it is a credit-linked subsidy scheme which is aimed at providing affordable housing to the urban poor as well as the MIGs, that is the middle income groups. And the scheme has two components. One is aimed at the urban centers, that is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, as well as the next one is Gramin, which is for the rural poor. Now let us understand about the urban version of this particular scheme, whose major objective is to provide housing for all in the urban areas, and it was launched in the year 2015. The beneficiaries include economically weaker sections, the LIGs, that is the lower income groups, as well as the middle income groups. And let us understand the components of the subsidy schemes, okay? First is the credit-linked subsidy scheme, which actually offers interest subsidy on the home loans for the EWS, the low-income groups, as well as the middle-income group categories. Next one is in-situ slum redevelopment. This actually utilizes land as a resource to provide houses to eligible slum dwellers. Next is affordable housing in partnership. This actually promotes the partnerships with the public as well as the private sectors in order to provide affordable housing. And the last one is beneficiary-led construction. This is nothing but this provides financial assistance to the individuals in order to construct or enhance their own houses. Now moving forward, let us understand the implementing ministry actually happens to be the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. The special features is all houses under this particular scheme has the basic amenities like the toilet, the supply of water, electricity, as well as provision of a kitchen. Next is the mission promotes women empowerment by providing the ownership of the houses in the name of the female members or in the joint names as well. Next is preference to the marginalized sections is actually provided like differently abled persons, the senior citizens, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, then other backward classes, minorities, single women, transgenders, etc. Now moving ahead, let us actually understand the rural or the Grameen version of this particular scheme, okay? To achieve housing for all by 2022, the Indira Awas Yojana was restructured as the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Grameen from the year 2016, to be very specific, April 1, 2016. And this actually aims in order to ensure the Pakka houses with basic amenities for all the rural families currently homeless or those who are actually living in Kacha or the dilapidated houses by March 2022. Here, the beneficiaries include the SC, STs, the freed bonded laborers, then non-SC, ST categories as well, widows, or the next of kin, that is the close relatives of the defense personnel who have been killed in action, then ex-servicemen, retired paramilitary forces, disabled persons and minorities, and they're selected through the three-stage validation. Okay, so how are they selected through the validation? It's a three-stage validation, that is socio-economic caste census 2011, then Gram Sabha as well as geotagging. These categories are very, very important, or criteria are very important. Next one, how is the cost sharing that is actually done is the cost of the unit assistance is shared between the central as well as the state governments in the ratio of 60:40 in the plain areas and 90:10 for the northeastern as well as the hilly areas. And here the implementing ministry happens to be the Ministry of Rural Development. So overall, after looking at how this particular scheme will be revamped in order to enhance the efficiency and the effective implementation and in order to prevent the delays, we have to actually write a neutral conclusion for this. That is, the revamped scheme underscores the government's commitment in order to provide affordable housing solutions as well as improving the urban living standards across India. The extension and the introduction of new features are expected to bolster the effectiveness of the scheme, ensuring that it meets its objectives more efficiently and effectively. The next article that we'll be discussing about is Defense Ministry has signed 350th contract under the iDEX for the miniaturized satellite. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about what is this particular concept of iDEX, that is Innovations for Defense Excellence. And also here we'll be discussing about the DIO, that is the Defense Innovation Organization, as well as the concept of this miniaturized satellite. Okay. So this entire topic falls under or can be mapped under GS paper 3 for your prelims examination as well as mains examination, defense and indigenization of technology and developing new technology. Okay. So here you actually have a previous year question asked in the year 2019 in the prelims examination with respect to Atal Innovation Mission is set up under which of the following ministries. So the schemes, or suppose they might even ask iDEX is actually an initiative of which two consortiums. So these kind of concepts are very, very important for your prelims examination. Now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about, okay? So here, the Ministry of Defense in India has actually signed its 350th contract under the Innovations for Defense Excellence initiative. So it is important to understand what this initiative is about, okay? So this milestone contract actually focuses on the development and design of a miniaturized satellite was actually signed with the Space Pixel Technologies Private Limited. And here the Indian Air Force is actually leading this specific challenge, and the initiative specifically aims in order to integrate the advanced technologies into the defense operation, promoting innovation as well as efficiency. Now let us understand what this particular initiative of iDEX is about. Okay, so here it was launched in the year 2021, to be very specific, May 2021. The Innovation for Defense Excellence Scheme was established by the DIO, that is the Defense Innovation Organization, under the aegis of Department of the Defense Production, that is the DDP, Ministry of Defense. So everything is defense, please do remember that. Okay, and here let us understand about DIO. It is nothing but it is a not-for-profit company formed under Section 8 of the Companies Act 2013. This is also very, very important, and iDEX operates as DIO's executive arm. This is also very, very important. Okay. So moving forward, the DIO, created by Defence Public Sector Undertakings, that is the DPSUs, Hindustan Aeronautic Limited HAL, as well as the BAIL, that is the Bharat Electronics Limited, provides high-level policy guidance to this iDEX. And also, iDEX actually aims to foster innovation and technology, we saw, and in the operation within the defense sector, providing grants up to around 1.5 crores, that is up to 10 crore under the iDEX Prime, to startups as well as the MSMEs. Now here, moving on, let us actually see what it is designed for. Okay, so iDEX, this initiative is actually designed not only to promote innovation but also to streamline the procurement process of the armed forces as outlined in the Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020. So all these things might actually sound very static, but every sentence might be important for the examination. And this procedure allows the procurement through innovative solutions under two main programs. One is the iDEX program, that is Innovations for Defense Excellence, where it focuses on the projects from the startups and the MSME with low capital investment but high innovation potential. The next process is Technology Development Fund, that is the TDF scheme. This actually supports the projects leveraging domestic capabilities, particularly those from the MSMEs and startups through TDF or the DRDO. Moving forward, let us actually understand what is the primary goal of this iDEX. We know it is actually to foster innovation and technology and development, specifically in defense as well as aerospace. It engages different industries, including various startups as well as MSME, the individual, innovators, the R&D institutes, etc. And thereby, it provides grants and other necessary support for both research and development with potential future applications in the Indian defense sector. And also, achieving self-sufficiency for the Indian military actually requires rapidly incorporating innovation into weapon procurement. That is what this iDEX actually does. Next, let us understand what are the key aspects that this actually includes. One is actually the Defense India Startup Challenge, where 11 editions have been launched to identify and support the innovative solutions for the defense challenges. The next one is the Aditi scheme. That is the recently unveiled acing development as well as innovative technologies with this Aditi. It actually aims to promote innovations in critical and strategic defense technologies. And the next one, let us actually look into the achievements that it has actually made. This initiative has been, engaged with over 400 startups and MSMEs and has cleared procurement of about 35 items worth over 2,000 crores. Now let us understand the outcome of this 350th contract. The 350th contract under the iDEX was actually signed with the SpaceX Technologies Private Limited, as we already saw, for designing and development of this miniaturized satellite. This particular satellite is capable of carrying various payloads such as the, infrared payloads, the electro-optical as well as the synthetic aperture radar as well as the hyperspectral sensors with a total capacity of up to 150 kgs, where this is very, very important. Now let us understand what do you mean by miniaturized satellites, okay? So miniaturized satellites, often referred to as a small satellite or small sat, is a satellite of significantly smaller size, not only by looks but also with respect to that of weight compared to the traditional satellites. And these satellites are designed to perform similar functions as the larger satellites but in a more compact and efficient manner. Now let us solve few prelims as well as mains practice questions. The first question reads, with reference to that of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, consider the following statements. Launched in 2015, it aims to provide housing for all in the urban areas. Yes, this is correct. It will be implemented by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and the Ministry of Rural Development. No, this is actually wrong. And this mission promotes women empowerment by providing the ownership of houses in the name of female members or in joint name. So which of the following are actually correct? Since the second statement is wrong and 1 and 3 are correct, the answer will be option C. Moving on, the second question is, consider the following statements about the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha. The Deputy Speaker presides over the proceedings of the House in the absence of the Speaker and has the same powers of that of the Speaker. Yes, this is correct. The Constitution specifies a time frame for appointing. No, this is actually wrong. Article 95, Clause 1 states the Deputy Speaker performs the duties of the Speaker if the post is actually vacant. This is also correct. And Rule 8 of the Lok Sabha rules governs the election of the Deputy Speaker. This is also correct. Since only statement 2 is wrong and 1, 3 and 4 are actually correct, the answer will be option C, where only 3 statements are correct. Moving forward, the third question reads, consider the following statements with respect to that of iDEX. iDEX was launched by the Department of Defense Production, Ministry of Defense in May 2021. This is correct. The second one, it provides grants up to 1.5 crores to startups and MSMEs and up to 10 crore under the iDEX Prime. This is also correct. The Technology Development Fund scheme under iDEX supports the projects leveraging domestic capabilities. No, this is wrong. And iDEX functions as an independent entity but is funded by the Ministry of Science and Technology. This is also wrong. So only since 2 statements, that is 1 and 2, are correct, the option, that is the answer, is option A. Now, the fourth question reads, which among the following do not fall under the secondary sector of the economy? Automobile production, yes, it falls under. Energy utility, yes, it falls under. Mining and quarrying, no, this does not fall under. And chemical engineering, yes, this actually falls under. Since it is actually direct, the answer is option C. The fifth question actually reads, with reference to that of the National Security Council of India, consider the following statements. It is a statutory body. No, this is not a statutory body. It is headed by the Prime Minister of India. This is correct. And the Ministry of External Affairs is one of the members of the council. This is also correct. So since 2 and 3 are correct and since 1 is actually wrong, the answer will be option B. So moving forward, the mains question actually reads, analyze the current challenges facing India's manufacturing sector and evaluate the effectiveness of Make in India initiative. Also propose policy measures in order to rejuvenate this crucial sector of the economy. So here the approach answer to this particular question is divided into 3, that is the introduction, the body as well as the conclusion. In the introduction, we will actually start by briefly defining the manufacturing sector's role in contributing to India's economy, and also we will mention the ambitious goals set by the Make in India initiative, specifically with respect to that of the manufacturing sector. And in the body, we'll be discussing about what are all the current challenges facing it. For example, the stagnation in the GDP contribution, the regulatory hurdles it actually faces, and inadequate growth in the fixed capital formation. And moving ahead, we will actually evaluate the Make in India, program implementation as well as the regulatory issues. And finally, we will actually give in certain policy recommendations with respect to that of trade policies and enhancing the industrial investments and improving the infrastructure. And as a conclusion, we will summarize the need to a robust policy framework in order to revitalize the manufacturing sector, ensuring sustainable economic growth. So with this, we've come to the conclusion of the daily news analysis. For regular updates and more such videos, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.